You're listening to Go with Jamarlin Martin. We have a go hard or go home approach as we talk to the leading tech leaders, politicians, and influencers. This is part 2 of the interview. Let's go. So you go through Angela Benton's New Me Accelerator. I feel like she doesn't get enough credit for being in this space where someone like you, the other accelerators, the white accelerator is like, no, keep this guy out of here.
They won't fuck with us.
And then Angela comes up and like, come on.
Yeah.
Come on, let's do this thing.
Yeah.
How long was the accelerator at that time?
12 weeks.
12 weeks. Okay. So you get out the accelerator, you have a product, right? You have some traction, and you raise about $1 million from who?
My first investors was Mitch, Eric Moore. The first person that gave me a yes was Eric Moore. Which is a brother out of Oakland. I don't know if you met Eric.
So
good
it's
brother.
A brother who was on the bid.
Yeah. He was the first person that pulled the trigger. And that was big for us because when he pulled the trigger, it made everybody else pay attention. It's like, yo, what does Eric see that we may not see? What does Eric know that we may not know? So people started paying attention. And anyone who's raised money before, they'll know getting that first yes is the hardest thing.
Yeah, that's an important point for the audience, is just the way the market thinks. When they see you, the best way to de-risk rejections or skepticism is see if you can get someone.
Right.
Even if it's a small investment, you need someone who they're familiar with, who they think is safe before you step to them. And I would call it a halo.
Yep.
That if you could go out in the market with a halo, someone notable, someone that's respected. Maybe they're on your board. Maybe they invest a small amount, but that's extremely
super important. Super important. Yeah, it helped that momentum.
Because in terms of your profile, at least the way the establishment is going to think is, hey, this is risky. This guy comes from prison.
Right.
He's black.
Right. Check every box. We had every box you could check.
It's like, man, you're not. It's like, man, there's too many red flags here.
Yeah, we had every flag you could have. Yeah, we compounded flags. So that's why sometimes I told people, like, if I could do it, anyone could do it, right?
Yeah.
Because I had every strike you could possibly have, right?
Yeah.
I didn't have any background, didn't have college, came fresh out of jail, black. Like, I had every strike you could possibly have. So, I mean, at this point, it shows importance of, if you're solving a real problem, and if you're solving a real problem, the market's gonna agree with that, then you should be able to build what you're trying to build.
This is also a point where some people say that black people don't help each other enough, or we never help each other. We never kind of do things. But when I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, they are getting help from people who look like them, like yourself. The brother came up and provided the first big check and sponsorship. Talk about some of the other investors that fill that out.
Yeah. So then, after Eric, we had another big one, which was from Shante. And he's an angel investor, another brother, former player for the 49ers and Raiders. So he was a huge supporter. And then we had Mitch Kapoor, at which Brian, he's heading that up now.
Brian Dixon's heading. Did you meet him at New Me?
Yeah, I met him at one of the demo days. So I met Brian first, and then talked to Brian. Brian, he got it. He was a believer. Then later on, ended up meeting Mitch, and then talked to Mitch. And what was interesting is that none of these people said yes on the first meeting. It was a process of them seeing us and seeing our progress over a period of time.
Yeah.
So although when I look back, it feels like it just happened. It really was over the course of 6 or 7 weeks of seeing where we were on week 1, then seeing
doing what you say you were going to do.
Exactly. And that's really important. Is that I don't forget who said this. I read it somewhere, but they said that investors invest in lines and not dots, and it's so true. Every time you come across and meet an investor, that's just one dot on their radar. After you meet them enough and they can connect all those dots to a line, that's when you're probably closer to being able to get that investment, get into that check.
Okay, got it. So you get Kapoor Capital behind you. Then at that time, in terms of market size, what were you pitching in terms of how big this company can get at that stage? What was the runway for you guys?
Yeah, at that time, I didn't know what I was talking about. I was saying some bogus numbers, and I don't even remember. It didn't make no sense. But and it was what's funny about it when I think back about it now, we were saying something like, 10 billion and just we're gonna do this, we're gonna do 100 million our first year. We were saying all kinds of nonsense. But what it really came down to is that early stage people understood that we didn't know exactly what it was gonna be, and at the time we only had one product, we only did one thing.
It was an
experiment.
It was
just photos, right?
Yeah.
So they was really investing in our ability to figure it out, and also they was investing in us as individuals and as a team that just had a very strong understanding of the market and overall problem we was trying to solve. So overall today we understand what the market looks like. Like I said, we have several competitors that are in the billion plus sphere, right? So it could be just as big as anything else. But at the time then, it was more so betting on us to be able to understand that we're going to be able to be disruptive enough and introduce a product that is sticky enough that will allow us to display and take some of those other larger companies' market share.
Since you launched Pigeonly, can you describe for the audience your two biggest mistakes as a founder?
Biggest mistakes
that they could possibly learn from.
I would say spending too much time trying to have a product be perfect, or spend too much time in your own head or in your own process of building something before getting it out there, because your learning is accelerated 1,000-fold if you're learning in the market versus you have all these random ideas and you're trying to keep making these changes while you're keeping the product in the oven, you're still baking it, right? And you keep adding this feature and adding this feature, or this would be cool, or that'd be cool. I would say that's probably one of them. I would say the first biggest one that's even bigger than that one is being able to have discipline, being focused, and learning early on that you can't be all things to all people. And, we realize that, if some people will try to, even though it might be good and willed or good intention, sway you to take your product one way or sway you to take a product different way. You really have to really focus on a very core problem that you want to solve, a very core customer demographic that you want to target, and focus on that, because it's just very difficult, especially when you're small, to be able to boil the ocean, right? And to be able to do everything. So that's what I would say is the biggest thing. Very early on, we wasn't as focused as we needed to be. We was a little bit scattered, and which slowed us down a great deal. And to slow down our learnings, which you wouldn't have known until the market would have taught you. But had we been in the market a lot faster, we would have had those learnings a lot quicker. And
so don't wait for 100%. Go at it at maybe 70, and learn and get it to 100.
Exactly. Yeah. Do it. Don't be afraid to change the engine when the plane's in the air. The second one, I would say the importance of team and focusing on building a team around you sooner than later, right? So a lot of times you'll get especially when you build it, you really don't have resources. You're so used to doing everything yourself. But sooner than later, you have to, as you start building a team around you, you have to start, being able to trust your team to be good at whatever respective disciplines that attracted you to them or them to you in the first place. And the more you leverage the teams, it allows you to be more efficient, allows you to focus on what your strengths are, and allows you to do more. So often I became the bottleneck because I had everything in my head, or I was the person that was involved in every single decision and things like that. And I became my own bottleneck and slowing process down. So, now I'm fortunate enough to have a very strong team and everyone that, really can carry the load, and they know that they're experts in their own areas, and allows us to operate. But I got to that a lot later than I should have, because I was too hell bent on holding everything so close, right? I didn't want to let it go. So it was really important to be able to not only build a team, but then trust your team to be good at what they do. And then when you find someone that is not a good fit, get rid of that person sooner than later. It's one thing that Tony from Zappos always says is, hire extremely slow and fire very quickly. And that's really, really important to do.
How long did it take you to get comfortable on this is not the right person? I can't get all emotional about this. It's time to give them their walking papers.
Yeah, it took a while. It took a couple rounds of doing it, because most of the times what I found is that by the time I would fire someone, everyone else would have like, damn, what took you so long? I'm thinking I'm going to hurt morale, or it's going to be some kind of blow to the rest of the company. And everyone else is like, man, that person should have been gone, right?
Yeah.
We was waiting on you to pull the trigger type of thing.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. That's what I've seen so far.
Yeah, that's really true, is that a lot of entrepreneurs, particularly new entrepreneurs, first-time entrepreneurs, we overthink, letting people go. Like, you're thinking that it's going to be a lot worse than what it is. And I remember I had to terminate a young woman. She came back. It was like I was thinking about it, possibly could have done it sooner. But she came back and said, hey, I understand. And, she wrote an email, thanks for the opportunity. But a lot of times you're overthinking the impact of doing the right thing for your business. Yeah. And do you think there's anything cultural going on where, hey, maybe people who look like us, we're not pulling the trigger fast enough based on what's best for the business because we're caught up on, or we're paralyzed with emotions culturally? Do you think there's any cultural
absolutely,
differences?
Absolutely. I mean, I've learned, that's one of the things that I've learned is, how to, separate my emotions from what needs to be done. And, I might be too good at that now where it's almost like, I'm a robot. But I think a lot of times we sometimes might go into something from the position of, would I be able to find somebody else, or would somebody else is willing to work for me, or is you have this inferiority type of viewpoint, which comes from a lot of things in our society in general. Even when you're talking to investors and just whoever it is that you're giving these people an opportunity to be a part of something that you're doing. It's not the other way around, right? So I think it's just important to keep that in mind, as you go out and you build and as you do things, because you really do have to remember that, you're creating value in the world, and it's dependent on your leadership to be able to reach its full potential. And no one, can stand in the way of that. So if someone is hindering you from accomplishing that, especially in the business, then that person needs to go.
Yeah. So I think on a larger level, it's not a coincidence that Jay-Z is almost worth $1 billion. And he looked at his partner, who he was loyal to, Damon Dash, in his mind was hurting him, hurting the business, having so many problems with partners and deals and, being an egomaniac.
Right.
And hey, if I want to be worth $1 billion, I got to put my emotions to the side and let this brother go do his thing.
Right.
Because I'm not getting full value for what I bring to the table. He wasn't going to let Damon Dash, get in the way of what his destiny was. And absolutely. I feel like, on a smaller scale, that's how you got to think about letting employees go.
Yeah,
who may be hurting the business, or maybe you can get someone a lot better. You're shortchanging yourself.
Absolutely.
Van Jones, in so many words, crowned his girl Kim Kardashian as one of the queens of criminal justice reform. He said in so many words that she has become one of the biggest leaders on criminal justice reform. Is that problematic for you?
Jesus.
You don't have to. I don't want to get you to go at Van Jones, but can you just kind of talk in general?
Yeah, I think in general, because of the platform that she has, I think Van wants to leverage that, right, for his initiative. So, I don't think I'm not one of the type of people that get in my feelings about people that don't look like me or don't think like me, or because I've done business with people that I don't like. I don't care. Right? So I don't get caught up in that, right? So it's more important to, understand and take the standpoint of what are you trying to accomplish? What is your goal? And if I have to align myself, maybe align is not the right word, but I have to co-work or work with someone that we may not have the same views in all aspects, but if we can agree on one thing and it can allow me to push my agenda, push my thing forward, then so be it. At the end of the day, I'm getting the job done. And that's how I look at it. As long as it's not causing you conflict with your morals and all that, then, you should be able to work with someone that you don't necessarily agree with on all things. And I think sometimes we get caught up in that too much, where because I don't fuck with you, I can't even get work done with you. I can't get business done with you. And it's going to be very hard to really build something in a large scale and make a huge difference if you're not able to accomplish things with people that you may not agree on every single thing with.
Yeah, what makes that problematic for me is that black women, black people in general, have been doing things, including yourself, tackling this issue. And the Kardashian family, they have been in bed with MAGA and Trump in terms of, hey, we're wealthy, we're white, we connect in kind of similar wealthy circles. And so now, because of this, I have access to Trump.
Right.
I have access to Jared Kushner, that Watts or Harlem or people like us, we don't have that access. So to let this wealthy white woman become the sister soldier of criminal justice reform, and all the black women and other folks have been fighting, you're going to have to give the streets and black women props before you crown this wealthy white woman.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it goes, both ways. Because in addition to that, we can't isolate ourselves either, right? Like we have to be able to work with people. Goes back to what we talked about earlier, to push our own agendas, right?
Yeah.
So that's important. But I think it's PR. I think it's talk. I think it's really for him to leverage that platform. But there's been people who's been in trenches, like you've been saying, for
you gotta
years
give them
and
props
decades.
first. That's all I'm saying. You gotta give the other people
Yeah.
props first. So today it was reported out of the New York Times that now the Elizabeth Warren campaign is coming out and saying she's supportive of reparations without any details. Kamala Harris, of course, on the Breakfast Club, said that she's also supportive of reparations without any details. What are your thoughts on the reparations discussion as it's kind of developing with this campaign cycle, particularly with Democrats, where, there's increasingly more black voters who are saying, look, you can't just give me a black candidate this time.
Yeah.
I don't care.
What you gonna do for us?
I don't care if it's a black woman, but what do you have? What type of policies do you have? Because there's no more credit card for the black candidate. Just getting our vote because the establishment and elites put a black person in front of us. So speak to kind of reparations.
I think from that standpoint, like shit, I'm all for it. But it needs to be something more specific. It needs to be something more concrete, right? And you look at what's happened with other groups that have been promised reparations in the past, whether it's with the Japanese and the Jewish for the Holocaust from Germany. It just needs to be very specific and detailed of how you're going to do this to be able to try to make up. Now, do I believe it? Nah, I think they just I don't believe it, but I think they're just saying some general things to try to get black voters. But I think we need to hold them to the fire and say, give us specifics on what are you actually going to do for us that's going to change and improve our condition in this country, versus just general top-down politics of, rising tide raises all ships type of stuff.
Don't you believe that before you can even get to talking about reparations policy, first America needs to have a day of mourning for the Africans, our people who were slaughtered and oppressed in the African Holocaust. And we need America, the present day people, to understand what type of trauma Africans have gone through. It's not just getting beat, not just getting killed, not just getting raped, but the psychological trauma where we prefer, in some cases, white supremacy over the black option. So the mental, psychological impacts when you look at us and in some cases look how crazy we are, that how all this stuff is related, where this country will never heal.
Right. They need to acknowledge it.
People understanding how this has impacted black people.
Right. I mean, that's one thing that hasn't really happened, at least that I have seen, where as a country I haven't seen the acknowledgement of the condition that black people are the cause of the condition that black people are currently in, and where that comes from. You hear a lot about, you just have to rise above it, or you just have to work hard and all that bullshit, but you don't see a lot of very specific acknowledgement of saying, okay, we understand why you think this way. We understand why you see the world this way. We understand why, there's poverty in your neighborhoods, when we understand what the effect of redlining had. We understand all these things, because it's just, until you talk about that, to your point, you can't even talk about how much I should be compensated for that. Yeah. You haven't acknowledged what you've even done.
Exactly. So that's the step.
That's the first step.
Yeah. I do think it's possible.
You think they'll do that?
That possibly, because I think it's possible, because I think the racial problem in the United States, it could get to the point where people kind of trying to rationalize, how do we get out of this mess? And the fact that Barack Obama said no on reparations, Bernie Sanders said no, Hillary Clinton said no. Now,
right.
The black voters waking up and saying, we're not going by this old, technology. We're not going by this anymore. We want something. We want something deeper. We want you to bang for Black America like you may bang for American Jews or the AIPAC lobby, where there's something specific to protect them or to protect Israel. What about the protection of Black America? What about the rising inequality? The only way to fix this, or it's not going to be a total fix, but you're going to have to go back like a abuse victim and talk about that trauma as a country, so that people can understand how we got here.
Exactly.
Jussie Smollett. Are you familiar with that case?
Yeah, I'm familiar.
So when it first came out, how did you think about it?
When I first heard about it, it sounded strange. And I'm not just saying that. I mean,
you knew it was kind of suspect.
It just sounded strange to me. Like, the bleach thing was just weird, and then but I was like, we'll see. But it's disappointing, man. It's like, we got enough bullshit going on where you making us look bad, brother. We got enough problems. We got people that's really out here struggling and fighting and dealing with this. I have friends that have had real altercations with real racists at a gas station, like throwing blows, right? So when you see that, you have somebody just making it up, whether it's to sell albums or whether it's just get attention. It's just disappointing, really. I mean, that's the best way I can describe it.
The sad thing for me is that a lot of his supporters, even after the technology that he tried to use and exploit the black and gay community, they still support him. They still are talking about, hey, he shouldn't have to go to jail because this white person did this white person did that. And it makes me think about, during the time of the O.J. Simpson case. I lived in L.A. and I actually saw the Bronco on the 405 overpass. The infamous Bronco. I was really kind of deep in that O.J. Simpson trial, culturally being in L.A. And a lot of the people, because of the pain and suffering, they, I think, knew that the fact pattern, the blood and all of this other stuff, that, hey, it looks like this guy killed those two people. But because of the intoxication with the pain and suffering, the community was willing to look past a double murder where O.J. Simpson, I believe, murdered Nicole Simpson, Ronald Goldman, chopped them up, possibly with someone else. But the black community is kind of so doped up on political crystal meth, racial crystal meth. A lot of us dismiss facts, dismiss kind of basic humanity. It's wrong to kill people. It looks like this guy has blood going from L.A. to Chicago. The facts were saying this. It had some racism in it, but some of us got to the point where I don't care. I want him to get off the hook because it's a punch back to the system.
Yeah, that's what I was hearing too. I was saying the same thing. It was like, let him get off because there's so many people who couldn't, or there's so many people who couldn't get off and they was mistreated or they was wrongly accused. So at least we let one go, right? So I mean, I've heard that argument as well.
Don't you think that this, now a lot of people are talking about identity, where there's an abuse and pimping of identity, whether it's race, gender, sexual orientation, that people are pimping identity for profit, to come up, to exploit, that we have to start thinking about, hey, we can get so intoxicated on, let's call it racial stuff and white folks and racism, where if you're not careful, you'll start to dismiss facts, just basic logic, common sense facts, because you're intoxicated on racial crystal meth.
Yeah, I agree, man.
It can become unhealthy.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can't get so emotional and wrapped up, because I think one of the things I believe is that we as a community, we should hold ourselves accountable more so than anybody else, right? So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. It doesn't matter, whether I'm black or not, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think we need to hold ourselves accountable, and it's just kind of like, the family should check the family, you know what I mean, off tops, and then then other people say, okay, you know what, my people's gonna check me first, you know what I'm saying, and that you'll see that, and we should see that in prison, is that one group would get out of line, and his people would check him. Yeah. So that it would prevent a problem with another group that wasn't like us, right? Yeah. So and that's just how it had to work. And what that did was it kept a level of respect, and it kept a level of order where people knew that they was gonna be held accountable for their actions, right? So you can't get so caught up in all the inequality that we do have and all the stuff that is real, and use that as a pass to say, I'm gonna do something that
O.J. Simpson and murder Nicole Simpson and Ronald Goldman. Okay, for this guy to commit fraud. Now you don't want him to be held accountable by the system because the system's messed up. Let him go out and start committing some more fraud and abuse his own community in terms of the currency we have with our claim against white supremacy. Right. He's abusing that.
Exactly.
You got to hold him accountable.
Right. And that's the problem, because now people are going to say, they're going to use him as an example in the next argument, right?
Yeah.
So when you say racism doesn't exist, you guys are making it up, right?
Yeah.
So that's going to be the next argument.
All right. I want to thank Frederick for coming on the show. Where can people check you out online and get more information about Pigeonly?
You can find Pigeonly online at pigeonly.com. You can find me on Instagram, which is where I'm mainly at, or Facebook, just under my name, Frederick Hutson on Facebook, or on Instagram, I am Fast Freddy. And that's pretty much where I'm at.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Let's go. Thanks, everybody, for listening to Go. You can check me out at Jamarlin Martin on Twitter, and also come check us out at Moguldom.com. That's Moguldom.com. Be sure to subscribe to our daily newsletter. You can get the latest information on crypto, tech, economic empowerment, and politics. Let's go.